Oh,
It's okay.
it's too late to turn back now. It's got a little Dutch angle for our live YouTube show. How you doing, Shari T?
I like it. It suits our evening.
Yes, so I am Anchorpete, and this is my wife, Shari T, and we are here to review episode 5 of LISEY'S.
LISEY'S.
Wow. LISEY'S story. The title of the episode, Shari, was The Good Brother, and I was disappointed because it was not The Good Doctor. I can always go for some Good Doctor content instead.
Has that show been canceled yet?
I don't know. I think it's going strong on ABC. My mom's a big fan.
So, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yes. So Shari's going to chew pretzels, and hopefully the people that are listening to this as a podcast aren't too upset. And if you guys like watching us eat, I'm going to chew some pretzels too.
It's been that kind of night. We have wine, we have pretzels, we have Doritos. And
we're ready to talk about Stephen King. If you want, you talk about it too with us in the comments. We want to know what you think about this show. Do you feel the way that I do with what I put in as the thumbnail? You know, the Clive Owen kind of staring off into space. You know, this is how I feel watching the show. Is that how you feel, Shari?
No, I don't, and I'm pretty sure though, but it's because I'm also reading the book at the same time, and the book is predictably so much better. But at least I understand what's going on because I'm reading the book. I bet you have no idea. I tried to imagine not having read anything and watching this, and I'd be so fucking confused.
I don't really feel confused. I just kind of feel like it takes so long to establish what's happening.
But there is a flashback amongst a flashback amongst a flashback. I think there's 4 different timelines going on, and I think that's pretty confusing.
Yeah. It's like a Russian nesting doll of flashbacks, right?
Beautiful.
Thank you. That's the second time I made a Russian nesting doll comment, and someone said beautiful this week.
Oh, it's not as beautiful if you've used it already.
I recycled that point. It was about the Conjuring franchise. But anyway, so it's, you're just digging deeper and deeper with that shovel, with LISEY'S shovel, going deeper into the flashbacks, right?
You're on a roll tonight.
I know. So what I will say is that I sometimes think when someone films a show like this, right, or they film a movie, and you have a scene where there's flashbacks, the flashbacks usually have the dramatic effect, right? The person is just kind of talking, and you see how they feel when they're reminiscing, and then there's this impact. But then I think about the actors filming the scene, and I'm like, so they just basically are just in a room just talking about this, right? Yeah, picture that scene with Clive Owen talking to Julianne Moore while he's describing his brother and his dad, right?
Right.
And he's just saying this kind of almost, he sounds like a lunatic talking to her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that must be a weird scene to film, don't you think? Where he's like, Daddy said that I was an anchor, but then I had to cut out the bad. All this kind of weird shit.
Okay, I want to say in the book, when he describes the scene to her, he actually reverts to a childlike look on his face. He starts speaking the way he did when he was a child, which is with a strong Pennsylvania accent.
Mm-hmm.
And she's kind of taken aback by how he almost seems like a kid again.
His transformation.
Yeah, and of course this is written really beautifully and really well done, and I'm super sucked into the book part. But showing it here on this show, yeah, I'm finding it lacking. It's of course not nearly as good.
Clive Owen's not going to bust out the Pennsylvania accent.
Yeah, I really kind of wish they did. I mean, the book is pretty weird. They make up, I think there's maybe at least 10 terms that are made up for this book that Stephen King made up. I won't even...
Strap it on? Is that what you mean? Or that's a phrase? You mean literal terms?
Literal terms that are made up and literal, Booyah Moon and, give me one more. Well,
Bull Hunt? Blood Bull?
You're just using the bull, but there's more. There's
a lot of bullshit in this show.
Okay, he has the bad gunky. If anyone's read the book, they would know what I'm talking about.
What the fuck is that?
That's what's wrong with the brother.
He's got the bad gunky?
Yeah, that's what they say in the book. They say in the book he's got the bad gunky. And see, for the TV show, they kind of cleaned up all the strange lingo. And I think it's kind of hurting the show. I mean, let's just go full on weird because the book is, and it kind of is working in the book for me. I'm kind of sucked into this world. I'm sucked into young Scotland and being some sort of, what is he?
Like a hillbilly? No?
The family is, I guess you could say hillbilly.
I don't know.
I mean, my family wasn't that far from hillbilly growing up, so I'm a little sensitive about that term. But like,
sure.
That's not what I'm getting at. He's some sort of like, what is it called when you can go to the psychic world? You're a psychic.
Oh, like a medium or?
Yeah, he's something like that. He can go to.
Clairvoyant?
That's not the word I'm looking for, but he can go to another world, and he's able to take his brother and other people with him. He takes his brother and Lisey. That's what happens in this episode.
Yes.
I mean, right? Did you notice?
I was there with you. I did see those scenes. Yes.
So he's some sort of, I want to say prodigy, but it's a better word than that. Anyway, he's amazing, and he's able to do this. And his dad knows it and is kind of in awe of him, even though the dad is abusive.
Mm-hmm.
The dad is abusive / loves them.
Yes.
Which is like a complicated, a very complicated, sad, terrible, beautiful thing. I mean, like in the book, I'm going between these emotions of being horrified by what's happening with brother Paul and how the dad is treating them, and it's very emotional. And on the show, I just think they really dropped the ball with what's happening with Paul. What did you think of the scenes with Paul, the brother? They call it the good brother in the book. He's the saintly brother.
Yeah. Okay. So I have some opinions on those scenes. I have opinions on the brother and on the father too. Good.
While I was talking, you ate all the chips.
Ha ha ha! Good. You want to go on for another tangent? I can maybe finish them off.
No, it's your turn.
All right. Anyway, so okay, I without a doubt know what you're talking about. Where the book is going to be better than the show, right? Because that's the way it is with Stephen King, pretty much all the time, with maybe a few exceptions.
Okay.
And so I know that those scenes where the brother was chained up, I'm sure they were more disturbing. I'm sure they were like sort of more sad to deal with, right? And horrific, right? I don't want to shortchange the actor playing the father and the actor playing the brother, because I think with what they were working with, I think they did a really good job. Maybe that father's even more horrific in the book. I'm sure he probably is. And maybe he's even more sympathetic in the book. The father is giving me sort of shades of Carrie's mom, where she feels like she's doing some sort of good work or God's work, but she's like literally physically abusing her child, and she's being cruel to her child. And it's just this, it's not this simple thing. It's not just this abusive, mean dad, just like you said. And it's not this loving dad. It's this sort of mix. And I feel like
Do you think Carrie's mom is a mix?
I've only seen Carrie the movie. I've not read the book. So I can only say what I saw in the movie. And the mom seems more like evil and resentful to her child. But there is resentment towards his children in this too, even in the show. There's this one line where he said, like, maybe you're the exterminator's son. You look kind of like him. Or he said to Scott that he was as ugly as he was stupid, right?
And I just want to say, I just went through this scene in the book, and none of those lines are said in the book.
Right. And
in fact, they never mention a mom. I've been wondering while I'm listening to the book,
where is the mom?
Yeah. They don't mention her. Mm-hmm. Maybe it gets mentioned later. I have noticed that some things are out of sequence with the show from the book. Mm-hmm. But so far, the lines the dad said on the show do not match the lines he says in the book.
That's interesting.
I mean, he is abusive. Like, he does call him names in the book. A little fucker, a little fucking scoot, things like that. And he has this like accent, and it's you're praising the actor. I'm kind of thinking like, you're an actor. Go read or listen to the book and fucking come back to me with a Pennsylvania accent and do this. I mean, I didn't think it was good enough.
Okay. Well, when it comes to that, if you feel like the accent is really important for the character,
I've been running around talking like that all day.
Yeah, and it's funny, right? Because we're just reviewing Mayor's
Pennsylvania accent,
right?
Yeah.
You know, Mayor of Easttown, and that's famous for the accent. I think that just in some situations, the director, the showrunner, the producer, they have to kind of make that choice. Well, do we really lean into the accent? Do we really try to make this authentic? This is the actor's range. Maybe he's not as good doing the accent. I think that the father is very good at seeming both like intimidating and scary, and also seeming like he loves his sons. And I was actually kind of wondering who that actor was, because I want to see what else he's in.
I was too. I was wondering who the actor was, and I like that. And I mean, Carrie's, there are shades of Carrie's mom, but from what I understand, Carrie's mom is just pretty much evil, intent on destroying her daughter once her daughter doesn't want to be under her control anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that with this dad. This dad is, yes, he wants them under his control, but there is something going on here that is outside of all of their control.
Mm-hmm.
And that is true, like possession. I mean, this reminded me of The Exorcist, what happened with the brother Paul, right?
Yes.
And in the book, it's not explained in any way except that they call it the bad gunky, that the dad was right all along, that you can get the bad in you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically possession, like a devil possessing you, and you're not yourself anymore, and you're evil. And Paul would have killed his little brother Scott,
mm-hmm.
who he loved only an hour before.
Yeah, it's very sad. You say it reminds you of The Exorcist. It kind of reminds me, at least in the way they portrayed it on the show.
I mean, what happened to Paul reminds me of The Exorcist. He's like possessed. He's no longer himself.
Right.
But go ahead.
Well, no, just like the way they portrayed it on the show, it kind of reminds me of like zombie movies when like a person is infected and then they are just kind of ravenous. He's kind of screaming. His screaming kind of reminded me of the vampires in 30 Days of Night, because they kind of scream like that. That's kind of part of how they hunt and stuff. He was doing that. But of course, like a possession movie, like The Exorcist, and like even like something as simple as like Evil Dead, right? There's always that kind of scene where the person's possessed and they're ravenous and they're crazy and they're saying this horrible stuff. But then there'll be a scene where they're like playing on the weakness of another character and they're saying like, oh, it's really me. I really love you. And I really felt sad because the actor that plays the brother who plays Paul, I don't think that like maybe he's kind of going through puberty right now. Like his screams were kind of like a girl's screams, like or like a little boy's screams. They weren't like a manly scream.
He's supposed to be like 13.
Yeah. And his voice is sort of very feminine or childlike when he's talking, and so I felt really bad for him when he was like, "Oh, we'll go on a bull hunt." That was effective, I thought.
Yeah. I was like broken up about it all day because I like listened to this scene earlier in the day and I was upset about it, and just feeling bad for young Scott, who loves his brother, him and his brother have been 2 against 1 against their father throughout their lives.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why there's no other family members. That hasn't been revealed yet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where the mom or anybody else is.
Family.
Right. But it's them against their dad. They love their dad, are afraid of their dad. Their dad's totally abusive. Sometimes they get along.
Mm-hmm.
And he says in the book that when this happens to Paul, when Paul is possessed or turns like this, they were getting along. They had a few good weeks. It was Christmas time. The dad actually took them to a movie. Things were going well. And maybe it was a turning point in their lives, that they were getting older and the dad maybe was going to recognize that. And so it's just a real shame that the bad gunky that runs through the Landon family got the brother.
Mm.
So the dad killing him, as they talk about, is kind of a type of euthanasia, mercy killing.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really interesting because, of course, I didn't see this coming with the brother Paul. You hear about what a wonderful brother he is in previous episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And like for him to have turned this way and threatened Scott's life,
Mm-hmm.
And for the dad to have saved Scott's life, and to be sad about killing his oldest son. All of that's like much deeper than I was expecting, I think.
Yeah, well, whether it is a zombie infection or an exorcism movie, I think it's all just a metaphor for kind of like watching a loved one suffer or die from like illness, And
or drug addiction.
Yeah. Essentially, where they're not in their right frame of mind because of something physical that's happening to them, right? Or I guess it could be a mental illness too, but I don't know. I just kind of realized that watching this tonight. It just kind of made me think that that's what this whole metaphor is. Because there quite often is the scene where like there's a loved one that gets infected by a zombie, or in a movie where someone's possessed, you always see the person in anguish. That's their loved one, right? And I think it's because it's so very realistic and so horrible to watch a loved one suffer. And that's what a lot of this episode was, I mean, he's chained to a freaking tractor, and he's in this barn and it's raining out at one point. It's just miserable, but yet he's scary too. And I think that, because it's horror, the literal fear is he's going to break free and hurt his brother. But the metaphorical fear is it's just scary that like any loved one could be taken like this and become something else. And it's I don't know. It's very hard to watch. Do you think that this was do you think this was a very good episode? Do you think this was like the most emotional episode? What do you think? We're up to episode 5 now.
I just feel sort of clouded by the book, but I think it was a shitty episode, personally.
Okay. Yeah.
I thought you did too, because you're the one who was like, how I feel watching this episode in the thumbnail. That was your words.
I guess, like, for me, because it's called LISEY'S story, right? And really, the interesting part of the episode is this whole scene with Scott and his brother, which is like the bulk of the episode. And the Julianne Moore stuff, I'm just like, I could give two shits about this sequence with her. She's just kind of sitting there flashbacking within a flashback within a flashback with a bruised face, right? And it just establishes, oh yeah, water helps you go to this other place. Like, hasn't she had like at least 3 sequences where people have alluded to water? Like literally, she's had these sequences where she's seen water flowing, right? And so they needed to get to the episode 5 for her to be like, water is the key.
Well, I'm a little confused because in the book, water isn't as big a deal. I mean, it does seem to be referenced a little, but Scott can get there without water, from what I understand. He can get to Booyah Moon, which is where the healing waters are, and he has taken his brother and Lisey, from what I've seen. Mm-hmm. And I don't really know how he goes about doing that. That's not clear to me, and they don't really show it in this. They're just suddenly there.
So water is like a teleportation Viagra.
I have to ponder that, but something like that. Yeah. I'm so distracted, but I don't know how she's able to do it without him. Basically, she didn't. He had a gift, and I didn't know that she had the gift. I think he like kind of taught her. She's trying to remember. I think that's what all these flashbacks are. She's trying to remember what he taught her, right, so she can repeat it and go heal herself.
Yeah, and that's clearly what it is. It's like that. It's like she's piecing together. The character is piecing together, but the problem is that the audience is piecing this together way quicker than her. Mm-hmm. And so that's always a flaw in a mystery or something where, the audience is expected to not know what's going on. Like if they catch on quicker than the main character, it's boring. So
you felt bored?
I was bored with the Julianne Moore stuff, but like, with the exception of like when she was facing Dane DeHaan, I mean, I don't know. I
know. Is Lisey's story really Scott's story told by Lisey?
Yeah, and it's like Stephen King's story, really, even though it's supposed to be about his wife, right?
I wonder if his wife's annoyed.
So let me ask you this question, kind of before we wrap it up and stuff too. There's one line that I thought was kind of cool where Scott was saying that artists and I know he said poets and maybe writers go to this pool. Is there any kind of reference to that in the book so far?
No. I have heard from what I've read a little bit online, mm-hmm, that this whole Booyah Moon place is a metaphor for writers when they go to their imaginations. Yeah. And that's why it's like a healing place. Like, you're a bit of a writer, right? So like when you go to write, it's kind of like a healing thing for you. You're in another world. I've heard that this is kind of a metaphor for that. And then there's the bad things in the world, mm-hmm, like the Long Man. Mm-hmm. That's like getting too close to the darkness within your imagination. Mm.
Like your kind of like cynicism, or like you can kind of get really kind of like really think negative things about the world, like that kind of thing. Sure.
There are a lot of writers, who've killed themselves and things like that. Yeah. It's like getting too close,
too deep or something. Yeah,
right. And you can't. And like in Scott's case, the Clive Owen character in this, he can't come back sometimes. And also Amanda, and I want to mention that about this episode too. Like Amanda seems to be some sort of key or Ty. We've talked about this. And she says it in this episode. She says, it's not Jim Dooley, it's Amanda. I don't know what she's talking about.
I agree.
Personally, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
But she does text her sister Darla at the end of this episode to tell her that I know how to help Amanda. I'm kind of thinking she's going to take Amanda to Booyah Moon, or Amanda's already there and she's going to bring her back.
Yeah.
But, and you've said yourself, you've told me this yourself, this is Stephen King, so it's not all metaphor, it's literal. This is like a true horror story.
Mm-hmm.
So when the brother is possessed, I don't think it's metaphor. I think he's possessed.
Oh, no. Yeah. Let there be no confusion. I definitely think he's possessed by some kind of thing, like a piece of that.
Okay, so if we accept that, then we have to accept that the dad is right. The family does have like a problem, and it's been passed down from generation to generation, and that cutting yourself actually does let out something bad.
Yeah.
Because like before, I thought the dad's nuts.
Okay.
And abusive.
Yeah. I've read enough Stephen King and people that are influenced by him to where like there's always like kind of sane, normal people that in the aftermath of any kind of craziness will write it off like the dad was crazy. But like in the moment of the horror, it's quite literal. It's like, you know, the brother is possessed by something, you know?
I mean, you said in the moment of the horror. I mean, I think it is literal, not just in the moment. I mean, it seems to me that Scott actually took the brother's body and buried him in another world. The body's gone.
Yeah. And like before, when I was talking about like how the possession is like a metaphor for death or whatever, or like a loved one being sick, I meant that like the actual book, it's a metaphor, but like it's literal in the story. It's like literally he's possessed, you know? Mm-hmm. I don't think anything's metaphorical. I think like literally. Mm-hmm. Well, and then that brings up, I'm glad you brought this up before we wrapped it all up, because I think that we haven't talked about how like beautiful the show is, right? Don't you think that the show just itself, the cinematography or like the shots in the show, like I think it's an exceptional show in that regard. Don't you think?
Like what?
Well, this episode, one of the examples I can think of is there's one part where the dad and Scott are walking out to the barn area where the brother is, right? And it's raining out. And they did like a sort of bird's eye view of the two of them. And it's just raining on them. And you can like see like these giant stones that are just like in the ground, but it's from high up. And it's just this like really cool shot. But that's just like using like the location. Then the show has like these sort of pre-made, either like computer generated or they made these special sets where it's the Booyah Moon. And I feel like that's really beautiful, that whole area.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I have wondered who all those people sitting there are.
Well, did you think that, for instance, the very muscled guy that had very little clothing on, like he was like probably like some kind of like Roman gladiator or something, right? That he was telling them to be quiet. Do you remember that guy?
Yeah, that followed him and got snatched up by
No, that's a different guy. The bald guy that got snatched up is a different guy.
Well, there were a lot of people.
Yeah, there's a couple of women in veils, and some of them look like they're just bone underneath there.
Well, how come there's just some people like covered with sheets? I mean, it looks cool, but I'm also sort of like, what the fuck is going on? That's why, I mean, I wanted to be like, what the fuck is going on? Because
the dad at one point says to Scott when he's very desperate, he says something like, you can live on after you die or something like that. You can live on if you're special.
I'm sorry, it's exposition.
Of course. And so
that's not in the book.
Well, yeah, it does seem like Stephen King has definitely added a whole bunch of things in this show.
To try to make it like more understandable and to try to compact it into like these episodes for TV. And I'm sorry, it just takes away.
Yeah, well, you know, Stephen King is, and I think we've talked about this before in our videos, he's like a notorious pantser. Which, just for anyone, it's like he writes by the seat of his pants, right? He has an idea, but he doesn't outline it and stuff, right? He just goes in and he just writes. And I think that when you're a pantser, you kind of have that feeling sometimes of like, oh, I should have included this. Oh, I should have included that. And so if he's in charge of adapting the book into a show, I think that's what he's doing. He's like sticking a lot of things in. Oh, I wish I did this. I wish I did that.
It just dumbs it down, though. Like, I don't know that it needed explaining. I mean, let us figure some things out. Let some things be unclear. I like when, like, you have to kind of figure things out a little bit on your own, and there are different interpretations. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Honestly, in the book, when the scene where the brother goes nuts or turns on them is super intense. He's about to like eat Paul. I mean, he's about to eat Scott. He's like going for his ankles on the stairs. They kind of briefly show that, but it's a really important moment. The dad like comes in, hits him on the head. He goes unconscious, and the dad's like, "Get the chain out of the shed right now. We don't have much time. He will break every rope we have, and he will tear our house down if we don't stop him." You know, and it's like a matter of like time. And so the little boy has to run out to the shed, get all these chains that he can't even carry that are too heavy for him. And it's this really intense scene. On the show, the dad's like stopping to give him these like lifelong, like these life talks and all this. There's like not time for that in the book. It's like really intense. It's actually scary and stressful and upsetting. And time is of the essence. And it just really bothered me to stop to talk to him about, you're this kind of person and he's that kind of person. And I was just kind of thinking, he's going to get loose from the chain and come get y'all, you know? And of course, they lose the intensity. They could have had a really cool moment, I think, with that.
The show doesn't seem to have suspense or momentum.
And that's bad. That's bad for anything scary. Like, Alfred Hitchcock's the king of it. Like, you need to have suspense. It's so important.
Yeah. It has sort of like a cruelty or like an intensity. Like when the father was like beating up the brother and like cutting him and stuff, there was no like, oh, we got to do this in the nick of time kind of thing. It's just this sort of drawn out abusive thing. And then when Dooley was beating up Lisey, once again, it was this sort of like drawn out abusive thing. But there isn't this sort of like, hurry, get this before this happened. There's nothing like that on the show whatsoever. It's a very meandering kind of show. You know?
Yeah.
So
it's maybe gratuitous.
With the violence? I mean, but isn't the book gratuitous with the violence too?
There's reasons though. I feel like gratuity means that there's violence and it's not for a good reason.
Yeah, but isn't like, for instance, that sequence where Lisey in the show, she was cut with a pizza slicer. You were saying that she was cut with a can opener in the book, right? Isn't that sort of, those scenes are the equivalent of each other?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, it's not like they add that scene, right? For the show?
I'm just saying for the dad scenes that it's not really gratuitous. I mean, like, I'm not sure what to say to you.
Okay. I'm sure we will have a discussion about it after we stop recording. We'll talk about it tonight.
I guess we don't totally agree. I don't know.
Like when you say gratuitous, you mean that it's unnecessary to show certain things in the show? Like,
I thought
what do you mean?
were saying that.
No.
Yeah, I thought you were saying it's really violent and it doesn't really amount to much.
No. It amounts to something. It's disturbing, and it's innocent people being hurt and abused and mutilated. But what I'm saying is that you said that in the book, it was this real intense scene. It seemed like time was of the essence. And I'm saying that the show is just like this sort of meandering, slow thing that even with violence, it doesn't feel like, do this quick and you can get away, or like, do this because you have to. It's just like, you're going to get abused now, and you're going to get cut.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I think that's a very smart point. And look, there's no more freaking Doritos or chips left. So, sorry. Look, there's some meandering violence right here.
Real quick, before we end it, I want to talk about Dane DeHaan. I got his name right this time, I'm pretty sure. Barely in it this episode. He just has a little scene where he is reading something that he took from Lisey's house.
Which he believes is a prequel to Coaster's daughter.
Right, and he's excited about that. And the professor says, stop what you're doing.
Dash meal.
Yeah. And
he's trying to call
Dane
him off.
DeHaan is not going to be called off. Right?
No, that was just a little check-in with him.
Little check-in.
Because last episode was so intense with him, you know. But they're just reminding everyone we're going to see more of him next time.
Yeah.
And there was no...
and for me, so far on the show, he's been one of the best parts. So the check-in is appreciated. I was like, okay, well, where's the really good part of the show?
Right.
There it was, that little tiny part.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how many episodes are left. Did you say there was 10?
Yeah, I think there's 10.
So we're at the halfway point? Oh, Christ. All right, well, whatever. We'll get through it.
Hey, if you've read the book, if you haven't, let us know what you think.
Yeah.
We're clearly curious about what other people think about this show. And also like and subscribe.
Yes, please. We love your comments. With Mayor of Easttown, oh man, that was such a great time. For this show, I know it's not for everyone. I know not everyone has Apple TV. But if you do and you're watching this, let us know what you think,
I want to hear from the Stephen King fans, who know his work, and what do you think of this adaptation?
Yeah. And then we've been talking about like what we're going to do next too, right? Like what was the thing we were talking about?
No, we haven't decided that.
I guess not. Yeah, but Apple TV kind of affords other things too, because, we were thinking about maybe watching Foundation. I know that comes out in September. And of course, Shari T and I reviewed Big Brother. We still might do that for this channel too. We'll see.
It's like another world.
It's totally different from all the stuff that we cover, but
we are
we
fans.
love Big Brother. Yeah, if you guys are interested in that, let us know in the comments too. Okay, and if there's also another show that's really piquing your interest right now, let us know too. All right, guys. So thanks so much for watching, and we will see you guys